welcome to the Fanatics of Film. My name is Ben. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Camera one, camera two, which one? So, just wanted to give you my quick review on the Shazam movie that just came out. Well, they had an early release this weekend. I saw this movie on Saturday with the special screening that our lovely corporate machine Fandango has decided to make available to early-going audiences. I was reluctant to use them as all of the recent activity in the news in relation to Marvel's version of Captain Marvel had been so shady, underhanded, and poisoned with disgusting bigotry. As we applaud our own silence and support this monster, we watch our own freedom of speech being taken away. Of course, these types of freedoms, audience enthusiasm, have only been with us for a few years, so it was only a matter of time before they were taken away. They had too much influence on the corporate interests, so these avenues naturally had to be shut down. If I owned stock in one of these companies, I would completely understand why they would be doing this, and I'd probably favor it, but at the same time, however, I don't have a financial investment. I have an investment that is actually much more valuable, an investment in the story, a story that has changed the way movies are made. The historical event known as the MCU will probably be infected after Endgame. Get ready for the end. So Shazam was okay. It was all right. It just, I mean, apparently Rotten Tomatoes is given 92%. If you're like me, if you love the Dark Knight trilogy and you love the serious aspect of the superhero genre, like I do, then you'll probably fall in line with me a little bit. I enjoyed the film. It was okay. But it was definitely geared for a younger audience, which is awesome. If anything geared to encourage young men these days is a plus in my book, because everything seems to be tearing men down. Just the other day, I saw a Gillette ad, try 30% off, 40% off. Showing the all-American family with Gillette. It's like, after all that, after this whole crap show that you tried to throw on us, it's pretty ridiculous, pretty funny seeing that. What was your thoughts on Shazam? I thought it was okay. There was definitely some. It was fun. I think the probably the strongest part was having to deal with the things that Billy Batson ends up having to realize about his mother, and of course no spoilers there. Just he ends up realizing and having to accept things about his family, about his biological family, that he didn't want to. Things that just weren't that great, and so it reinforces his current family, his foster family, the foster family that he's in, the other foster kids that are there, the mini orphanage that has become his life, has become his go-to people, all of his good friends and everything. So that was good. There was a lot of strength built on that, the friendship, the group friendship, and so coming out of this movie, it was definitely fun. I mean, very positive, but super cheesy, over the top cheesy, to the point where it's definitely for a younger crowd, which is fine. I think that's great. Definitely not my cup of tea. I was hoping that they would go a little bit more of the kick-ass route, and so that it could well, not necessarily that deep, but the kick-ass was very it still brought realism into it, and so this was so far to the other side of that, and where there was very little realism, to the point where it was almost cartoonish, which is, like I said, great for young people. Hats off to them. I mean, when I was that age, my go-to was Batman '89, because I was about 12 years old when that film came out. So I think that some of the strengths, go through some of the strengths first, and then go to the weaknesses. The strengths, of course, I thought the friendship between Billy and his best friend, having to deal with the bullies together. That's something that doesn't really happen very often. In my life, at least, dealing with bullies has been a solo thing, man. It's just me against them, and it's rarely been a group thing. So I think that's actually great, to kind of teach anti-bullyism, and to teach that friends can join together against bullies, etc. I mean, I'm giving it like 65% out of 100 for me. But then again, like Aquaman, a lot of people said Aquaman was super cheesy, but I loved Aquaman. I thought it was great. Definitely wasn't to the point where I wanted it to be, but it was still really awesome. I still really enjoyed it. I gave Aquaman a good 8 out of 10. As far, like I said, as far as a fun escapist entertainment is concerned, that was it was fun for that. I really enjoyed Aquaman because I of course read the New 52 books, and so those were pretty well represented in that, all the different aspects of the hero's journey and all those things that were in there. So there was goodness to that. The reinforcing of the family, of his parents having to validate themselves, his parents having to validate themselves to him somehow, and realizing that they had been in the same situation, being able to adapt and being able to understand, or at least kind of empathize or sympathize with him on that, knowing that and seeing that happen and seeing that occur. The villain was fantastic. Mark Strong, Dr. Thaddeus Savannah. So that was, he was a really formidable villain. And I loved how the beginning of his story was conducted, or at least introduced at the beginning. At the very beginning, you see the villain's motivations, why he is what he is, how he feels cheated out of what he's been promised, or what he was teased to have been promised. Those things were really, really well done and prevalent in that. And seeing, presence of the Seven Sins. The original book was created in the 1940s by Bill Parker and C.C. Beck for Fawcett Comics. An Ancient Wizard, Wiz Comics #2, gives his age as 3,000 years, who gives young Billy Batson the power to transform into a superhero, Captain Marvel. C.C. Beck and Bill Parker created the character in 1939. Captain Marvel first appeared in Wiz Comics #2 by speaking the word Shazam, the acronym of 6 immortal elders: Solomon, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus, Achilles, and Mercury. Can transform himself into a costume adult, blah, blah, blah. Based on book sales, the character was the most popular superhero in the 1940s. Wow, that's cool. Even outselling even Superman. Fawcett expanded the franchise to include other Marvels, primarily Marvel Family associates, Mary Marvel and Captain Marvel Jr., who can harness Billy's powers as well. So there were a group involved in that, so that's actually pretty cool, because there was a little bit of a group in the film. So that's interesting, outselling Superman. So that's really interesting. Captain Marvel was also the first comic book superhero to be adapted into film in 1941. Republic Pictures serial entitled Adventures of Captain Marvel. So that's interesting. I had no idea of that. That is interesting. 1941. Wasn't Flash Gordon? I guess he's not really Flash Gordon isn't really a superhero. So Fawcett ceased publishing Captain Marvel related comics in 1953, partly because of a copyright infringement suit from DC Comics. Allegedly, Captain Marvel was a copy of Superman. Okay, so that's interesting. 1953 is that one. In 1972, DC licensed the Marvel family characters from Fawcett and returned them to publication. By 1991, DC had acquired all rights to the characters. DC has since integrated Captain Marvel and the Marvel family into their DC universe, and has attempted to revive the property several times with mixed success. There was that 1972 reintroduction that was actually pretty fun. I enjoyed that. So I grew up on those. I grew up on the 70s television shows, Hulk and Wonder Woman. Interesting stuff to know the details of this. It's interesting that both of these Captain Marvels were released relatively close to the same time. That's another really interesting thing. I wonder if, obviously, part of me thinks it was, as part of that it was planned. Part of me thinks it just was coincidental. Part of me thinks that once they realized that Shazam was coming out, Marvel had to jump on and getting the other Captain Marvel out first. Part of me thinks that. I'm not quite sure the details on the story of that, but that would be interesting to find out how that came into fruition. Was it DC? Because I remember them announcing this a couple of years ago, or at least a year and a half ago, and they had been talking about it for several years. I mean, they had talked about The Rock playing Black Adam for a long time. So I did thoroughly enjoy it. For what it was. I want to see DC succeed. So if young people are loving this thing, great, wonderful. It definitely was not. I didn't love it. I didn't love it at all. It was just fun, for whatever that's worth. It was a little over the top cheesy for me. Seeing Zachary Levi in full bore and full superhero mode was great to see that, because he's great at. He's actually really a funny guy, and if you get a chance to check out Chuck, he's actually extraordinary in that. It's about a guy who's just kind of stuck in a situation and just dealing with his life, and ends up being thrown into having to become kind of a secret agent type of thing, and that was one of Yvonne Strahovski's first big roles before she got into Dexter, and then doing. And now she's in Handmaid's Tale. Damon Honsu, playing the Wizard. He's been in a million different things. It was great to see him as well. He was very, very, he's always captivating, and he steals the scene. Every line that he delivers is with pure, unmatchable execution. Just beautiful, the way he's able to project any detailed feelings, evoking so much emotion on that. So he's got a ton of stuff coming up as well. So I guess he was in. I didn't realize he was in Captain Marvel, because I didn't see Captain Marvel. But anyway, probably my favorite stuff was the humor that landed. There was a moment where they're in a department store, and there's some throwbacks to Big, where they're stepping on a foot stepping keyboard, which is that's a direct throwback to Big, because there's a moment where they're playing a foot pedal keyboard in that movie, and that was actually kind of a funny moment. My favorite moment, probably the funniest part of the movie, was when he has to spoiler alert. They are in a department store, and there's a toy Batman, and he takes the toy Batman and throws, and it says, "I'm Batman," and he throws the Batman doll onto his face. So it was actually pretty funny. That was like the funniest part of the movie, I thought. Anyway, in all, I want to see DC succeed. So I give it a 65 out of 100. I give it a 6.5 out of 10. What do you guys think? I mean, apparently everyone's loving it. To me, it was a little too cheesy.